like to welcome you to Hope Unitarian Church, and you know it's St. Patrick's Day because Julia, Eric, and Carol are here playing, and we love it when they come. It's just an amazing opportunity for us to hear some great Celtic music. So let's give them another hand. It's wonderful to see everyone today. I'm the Reverend Justin McCreary, and I'm excited that you're here with us today. If you're new to Unitarian Universalism, one of the things I always like to say is that we're a covenantal group, we're not creedal. This means something very simple and can be summed up with words attributed to David Ferenc. One need not think alike to love alike. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. Being rooted in love, we believe that all human beings should be treated with dignity and respect. On this hill, we seek hope, love, justice together in community. And whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, in whatever your life circumstances, you are welcome here. At this time, I would invite you to rise and embody your spirit as you feel so called to sing our hymn of welcome. It is our tradition at Hope Unitarian Church to light a chalice before each service, and we light the chalice saying these words: "We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life that we share together." You may be seated. Our invocation today is by Pat Urablichty, and it's called "We Will Be Renewed." We come together with our tired minds and bodies, with our confusion and our questions, our uncertainties and our fears, our hopes with our past and our ideas, our passions and our faith. We come together bringing all who we are, trusting that in gathering we will be renewed, in that together we can create the world we long for. At this time, I would invite you to say our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek hope, truth, and love, and to help one another. And at this time, I would again invite you to rise and embody your spirit as we sing our first hymn, hymn number 20, "Be Thou My Vision." may be seated. And at this time, I will invite Claudia and Larry forward to talk about why they're members. It's not my memory.
Good morning. I'm Claudia Vandiver, and this guy is.
I
Who
can't.
who are you?
Insignificant.
Larry Vandiver, the guy I've lived with for a whole long time. And we are going to talk to you about why we pledge to Hope Unitarian Church. So, Larry and I haven't even talked about what each other's going to say. So, here's my part. I grew up going to a traditional Christian church. You know, that's what everybody did in small town Oklahoma. You all went to church on Sunday. Everybody did, or at least everybody I knew did. As an adult, I struggled more with religion until I came up the hill to Hope about 15 years ago. And I can remember immediately feeling comfortable here. The minister that day even talked about prayer in a way that made sense to me. And that's the first time I'd ever heard prayer explained in a way that did make sense. Justin starts off every service talking about how we are a covenantal faith. And then we say our covenant. And to me, that's what makes Unitarian Universalist so special. And I feel like we're really lucky to have this church here in South Tulsa. But you know what? Loving a church isn't enough to help it survive. It needs our resources, our time, and our money. And the money is what keeps the lights on. It's what keeps the maintenance on, allows us to the maintenance on this building to pay for it. It's what pays the salaries of our staff and helps us with our outreach. Like last night, the dinner was served at the Day Center for the Homeless. That takes some money to buy the food for that every month. So that's why I feel like I need to pledge. And that's why I would ask you all to pledge too during this pledge drive.
I think I'm Larry. Anyway, but what I would tell you is, like Claudia, well, I grew up in a much more rigid church than she did, the Church of Christ, which I think Justin is a victim of. Anyway, well, it was one you went to bed thinking I'm a sinner, you woke up thinking I'm a sinner. And once I left home, I wasn't a sinner anymore. I read, I learned, and I'd given up pretty much on religion. And this lady over here came up here one Sunday. And the next Sunday she said, Larry, I think you ought to come here. You might enjoy it. And guess what? I did. And talking about the covenant, the first two lines about love and service. And to me, that's the secret. And as Claudia just said, sometimes love is money. It's the other thing that's bad. The love of money is good, but love and money, both of what we need, and we do get it here, but I know it's sometimes difficult. But anything worth having, you need to pay for. And, you know, that is the secret of success to me. But thank you, and I'll still keep coming, even if I'm Larry.
Good morning. My name's Anita Ward. I remembered it even. For the announcements, March 23rd, the forum is going to be led by David Tracy, and it's going to be about the mission and vision. So come so you can put in your 2 cents about it. March 20th will 922 South Memorial. Let Mary Baird know if you are joining because she needs to make reservations for the proper amount of people. Excuse me. Women's History Month service and luncheon is March 30th. I think that's been mentioned. Turn in your pledge card if you haven't. See Jeff if you want to more details on it, on all the different ways you can contribute. Let's see, hold on. Out on the long table are copies of this. It's the church events calendar, and get one because it tells you everything that's going on, through the church, and put it in your calendar. Feed the homeless. When we take that food down to the day center and serve, the thank yous we get are many. I mean, they really appreciate what they're getting to eat. And I don't know, if you've never served, you might want to try it. Your heart expands. I think that's it for the announcements. Thank you. Oh, and I forgot one. So sorry. Okay. We welcome Carol Young and Eric Ryan Johnson and Julia Harris. And take it over, Eric.
I'm just noticing some errors in the order of service, and I apologize for that. This morning's meditation is by Michael A. Schuler, and it is called Cherish Your Doubts. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs too tightly held strangle the mind and the natural wisdom. Suspect all certitudes, for the world whirls on, nothing abides. Yet in our inner rooms, full of doubt, inquiry, and suspicion, let a corner be reserved for trust. For without trust there is no space for communities to gather or for friendship to be forged. Indeed, this is the small corner where we connect and reconnect with each other.
By Timothy Snyder. It is gratifying to know that, whatever the course of events, you are helping others to do good. Many of us can afford to support some part of the vast network of charities that one of our former presidents called 1,000 points of light. Those points of light are best seen like stars at dusk against a darkening sky. When Americans think of freedom, we usually imagine a contest between a lone individual and a powerful government. We tend to conclude that the individual should be empowered and the government kept at bay. That is all well and good, but one element of freedom is the choice of associates, and one defense of freedom is the activity of groups that sustain their members. This is why we should engage in activities that are of interest to us, our friends, our families. These need to be expressly political. Václav Havel, the Czech dissident thinker, gave the example of brewing good beer. Insofar as we take pride in these activities and come to know others who do so well, we are, and I took, anyway, we are creating civil society. Sharing in an undertaking teaches us that we can trust people beyond a narrow circle of friends and families and help us to recognize authorities from whom we can learn. The capacity of trust and learning can make life seem less chaotic and mysterious, and democratic politics more plausible and attractive.
Have you ever stood on holy ground? Many years ago, following the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Florida, I stood in a large circle outside of a gay bar in Jackson, Mississippi. And without knowing it, without knowing I'd even asked the question, I answered it as I was standing on holy ground. I stood in the circle listening over and over again to the words of pain and the outcries of the LGBTQ community in their space, in a place where they came for safety, where they didn't have to hide who they were. I asked a different question. Had I ever stood on holy ground? I remember many years before, broken and beaten down by life, I walked into a small Unitarian Universalist church in Jackson, Mississippi. I had lost almost everything in my life, and I entered their doors homeless and brokenhearted. I think of that moment and answer the same question. Have I ever stood on holy ground? I remember once sitting in the minister's study, listening to a vote that I wasn't supposed to be able to hear on whether or not I would be part of the community in this place. And in hindsight, I was answering the same question as I sat there. Have I ever stood on holy ground? These three moments, separated by so many years, by considerable space, by differing ranges of the feelings of my heart, these three moments are but a tithe of the times I have asked myself the question, have you ever stood on holy ground? The answer often was yes. What answered the question for me was very simple, that I was standing in communities of love. I think of an old song sung in my Christian days, I'm standing on holy ground and the Lord is present, and where He is holy. And though I don't have any desire to argue with the songwriter, I think I would change it to, I'm standing on holy ground and where love is present, it is holy. Some might come and say, but that means any ground can become holy ground. And I'd have to respond, yeah, I think so. And I don't mean to diminish the statement. I understand that many look to ground as consecrated, set apart for special use. And I get that. That's one of the versions of holy ground. But even then, standing in that bar in Jackson, Mississippi, I knew that I was on holy ground, consecrated as it was through the tears and the sweat of its occupants who came through the doors because there was no other place for them to be. No other place for them to be themselves. And I think that means I must expand my song. This is holy ground, and I'm standing on holy ground because where acceptance is presence, that ground is holy. In the book, A House for Hope, Rebecca Parker asked the question, is it possible to be religious alone? Of course, we haven't been very good at the concept of religion in the past, yet because there's this outlook where people say spirituality is good and religion is bad. And this is very much as Malcolm X once said, the chicken's coming home to roost, looking at the history of religion. But in reality, religion is the public sphere. The religion in the public sphere with the rise of the religious right has taken a hit. And many people like us have decided, if that's what religion is, maybe I'll pass. And I think of Parker's question, is it possible to be religious alone? Especially in an age where we want to be spiritual but not religious. But as I think of it, it seems to me that spirituality is something we can do by ourselves, but religion takes place when we bring that spirituality together. And thusly I must ask, have you ever stood on holy ground? On October 22nd, 1977, John Wolfe, standing in this pulpit, read this poem by Walt Whitman regarding the great city, highlighting its tenets. He described the city thusly, saying, "Where the city stands with its brawniest bread of orators and bards, where the city stands that is beloved by these and loves them in return and understands them, where no monuments exist to heroes, but in common words and deeds, where thrift is in its place and prudence is in its place, where men and women think lightly of laws, where the slave ceases and the master of slaves ceases, where the populace rise at once against the never-ending audacity of elected persons, where fierce men and women pour forth as the seas to the whistle of death pours its sweeping and unripe waves." After reading Wolfe's sermon from that day when the church was consecrated in all hope, I ruminate on Whitman's poem. This is something I do when ministers use poetry, and as many of you know, I am often using poetry in my sermons. I'm at my heart an exegetical preacher, which means I like to take texts and break them down into their smallest parts, and like water from a rag, wring meaning into life. And I came naturally as a Unitarian Universalist in 2025 to the phrase, "where the populace rise at once against the never-ending audacity of elected persons." Pardon me. I'm reminded again of the book of House for Hope, where Parker tells us of the gifts of progressive church. First, she reminds us that these places can be communities of resistance. In citing Whitman's poem about democracy at our consecration, I think Wolfe also highlighted this idea. And then there has been a second gift of progressive churches, and that is that we have the opportunity to experience community in covenant together. The Stewardship Committee very wisely chose the theme "Investing in a Beloved Community" this year, and I have since reflected greatly on the phrase "beloved community," which dates back to the early 20th century, where philosopher Professor Josiah Royce coined the term and said, "My life means nothing, either theoretically or practically, unless I am a member of a community." And again, I ask the question, have you ever stood on holy ground? When Martin Luther King talked about the end of the struggle that he took part of in the 1950s and 60s, he said, "But the end is reconciliation, the end is redemption, the end is the creation of a beloved community. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opposers into friends. It's this kind of understanding and this goodwill that will transfer the deep gloom of the old age into the exuberant gladness of the new age." And it's with this in mind that we become truly communities of resistance. We resist the idea that people don't know who they are. We resist the idea that the poor are poor on merit alone. We resist the idea that we live in a post-racial society. We support trans people. We bring good news to the poor, and we fight systemic racism wherever it is raised. The second gift of progressive church, as Rebecca Parker sees it, is that we provide the experience of covenant and commitment among people. This means that we provide a third place. If you've never heard the third place theory, the idea is that much of our lives take place in different spheres of existence. One is home. Another one is work. In the third place, well, the third place is somewhere else. This is the place where we can truly be ourselves. It's like having family or work friends, but then being able to have friends, where we can just be ourselves and not have to worry about who we are when we're in front of the people at work or school. Church provides a community in a world where we need community. It's easy when our times are good or when times are good in this culture, to become isolated. We can order food and groceries delivered directly to our door. We can take our church online and work from home. There is plenty of TV to watch. There are lots of video games to play, and there's a lot of work to do with both work and family, and these things can become isolating. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my voice today. Church is a place where we break this isolation. Church is a place where we form community and we learn to be in this world. Church provides this third place. And that doesn't mean there aren't expectations. It just means that the expectations are different. You choose to be here. We are driven by consent. No one is forced into this door. In Unitarian Universalist pulpits, you'll never hear tell of hell, where if you don't come, you're damned to some eternal existence. You don't hear that here. If you're here, it's because we agree on our values, that we agree on our covenants, that we agree on our principles. It's a place where we can truly break isolation. So I asked the question, have you ever been on holy ground? The third gift of church is that it grounds life in shared rituals. Every Sunday we get together for coffee, for service, where we light a chalice, sing hymns, listen to wonderful preaching. In our own special way, we pray. And yes, Larry and Claudia, we get to choose how we pray. And we get to choose what it means. Even if that prayer is just a good word to our friends. In this place, we dedicate our children. We memorialize our friends who have passed on. We celebrate our special unions like marriage. We provide an opportunity to embrace the divine, the human, in a separate way. If you look at the back of our auditorium, we remember people here. Each leaf on that copper tree in the back is a person remembered who is now passed away. We evoke the holy here, whatever that means. These three things are the gifts of church. We are communities of resistance, communities of the third place, and communities of ritual. The beloved community is a community of the future and a community of now. It isn't a perfect community. It isn't a community where we have the freedom to be as imperfect as we need to be, a place where we can fail safely and love fully. It is now and tomorrow. It is what we have here and what we will create when we learn what we have here, that what we have here isn't perfect as well. Have you ever stood on holy ground? I think again of the song that I sang. We are on holy ground because anywhere we are present and where we come together, that place is holy. And this community continues to exist because of you. Because you are here, because you give of your time, your talent, because you make a pledge. We are responsible for making sure this community continues. I didn't have much time to work with the reading that Anita had for us, that I'd asked Anita to read this morning from On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. But I do want to highlight one thing from that section. One element of freedom is the choice of associates. And one defense of freedom is the activity of groups that sustain their members. In the book on tyranny, we're encouraged to donate to a cause. We're encouraged, I think it's number 15 in his 20 points. We're encouraged to donate to a cause. If you like to hear these things from the Bible, that what was it that was said? Where your treasure lies, there your heart lies also. We survive I've never liked saying by the gifts of the membership, because that presents something that we're not necessarily as committed to. I don't know a better word. But we don't just survive, we thrive by each of you taking part in this place. Each of you giving of your time. Yesterday, while standing somewhere, we were at a small outing for we were playing charades. It was one of the parties that was a sign-up party from the auction. And Jeff had said that he was going to head up here tomorrow to check to see how many branches were down. We give of our time. We give of our talent. Anita was up here this morning. She was reading for us because she's talented in doing so. We have Julia here. We have Carol. We have Eric, who comes so often to help play for us. We give of our talent. And we give of our treasure. And we remember where our treasure lies, there our heart lies also. It is the role of the church to care for itself, to care for its community. We give to this place because in giving to this place, we're taking responsibility for its future and for the way it will interact within a civil society. We give because that is one way of fighting the tide that we're fighting against. I encourage you during this pledge season to look towards the gifts you give as opportunities to support the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I encourage you during this season to look into the world and know that one of the ways that we're encouraged to help is through our commitment to, in our association to these places, these churches. That it is important in places like Oklahoma for progressive churches to continue to exist. Not just churches where thousands of people can come, but where smaller numbers want to come to get that full feeling of family. It is important and too important at this time in our history to let go of church. We must be a light in the darkness. We must be a city on the hill. We must stand together and build our relationships and love one another. So I ask the question, have you ever stood on holy ground? Because I have. Thank you. Even during pledge season, we give to us each month. We choose a generosity recipient, and we select part of our plate will go always towards that generosity recipient. And you're able at Hope Unitarian Church to donate directly to that generosity recipient by writing generosity on a check line on the memo line of your check or by giving cash donations. If you would like at this time for that pledge to go towards your pledge, please don't write anything in the memo line or put cash in the envelopes provided. This month's generosity recipient is Divis, which is a domestic violence organization that helps women who are struggling with domestic violence, but also supports the family from every side. It's very important during this time to support each other, to support women, and to support the community this way. So please give with hope for the future. We build on foundations we did not lay. We warm ourselves at fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. We drink from wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. We are ever bound in community. I would invite you to stand for our final hymn, which will be hymn number 108. That is My Life Flows On, an Endless Song. Please rise in body or spirit as you feel so called. Let's extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame. I encourage you today, pay attention to when you're on holy ground and give thanks for that opportunity. Let's go in peace.